Welcome to the Let's Go Recovery podcast, where we investigate sobriety and beyond that, explore solutions to help us heal at the core, where the root of our problems like addiction or alcoholism begin. We hope you hear something in today's podcast that ignites a change in your life. We're on the set today with professional life coach, father, ex-addict, all the way from Oregon. Welcome to the show, James Yount. Thanks for coming in.
Dude, thank you so much for having me.
You know, it's super cool to have you come all the way down, reaching out on Instagram, social media. That was awesome to see our reach. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it a lot.
Absolutely. I want to jump right into it. We talk about a lot about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous having a threefold disease, a spiritual malady, a physical problem, and also a mental problem. You know, everybody can recover differently, and I want to talk a lot, and I want to jump right into it today, that you talk a lot about the body first, and your transformation actually happened somewhat body first. How did that go?
Well, I was the world's fattest tweaker. So I was a 350-pound obese meth addict.
Wow.
I started using intravenously towards the end of my run, and I just knew that I needed to change. And then there was a time I was trying to change everything, but my body told me, like, hey, before you can get a job again, before you can do any of all this other stuff that you need, I needed to lose weight, and I needed to lose a substantial amount of weight.
How is it possible that you're a tweaker, and for those who don't know, that's meth, any speed, any fast, anything that goes fast. How is it that you're overweight tweaker? How does that happen?
Depression is a very real thing. I think when you start to spiral so deep that you're obviously going to have some sort of dual diagnosis. And it wasn't just addiction, it was depression. And so I literally would get high, I would paint, and then my diet, if I ate, consisted of nutty butters, whole milk, and root beer floats and Cheetos.
Oh, that's
and probably like a gallon of Coca-Cola a day.
Oh, that's awful for your body.
Yeah, so
it's like you're almost better off with the drugs. Like,
yeah, probably. So the combination of the two, was really dangerous.
Yeah, it sounds great. So you have this aha moment. We talked a little bit about it, where you look at yourself almost in the mirror, like who you see, can't function.
Yeah.
What changed? What happened?
So on my 40th birthday, I had gotten high, and I remember looking in the mirror. Well, first of all, I'd shot up, and I'm like, I'm not feeling anything. And then I look in the mirror, and I see this monster, and not just like physical unrecognition, but my eyes were sunk in, and I literally looked like my eyes were black, and I'm just like, this is not good. This is not good. And so I said a prayer to a God that I didn't believe in at the time, and God's a huge part of my recovery now. So I said a prayer, real simple, like, I don't know if you're there, God. I don't know if you hear me, but I'm pretty sure if you can help me quit doing meth, like, that's got to be a good place to, like, help change my life.
Let's start there.
Yeah, let's start there. Like, there's all these problems, but, like, I feel like meth is probably a good thing to, like, end.
It's on the list. It's on the list.
Exactly.
Let me start with the meth. That's great.
Right.
A lot of people, it's funny, we're joking about it, but a lot of people don't recognize that there's so much more to, like, putting something down. There's probably a list, a litany of things that we've got to stop.
Yeah, exactly. And so then I continued to use for another one month and 2 more days. And then I went to get high on September 22nd of 2020. And I got high, and then I broke all my paraphernalia and flushed probably like a quarter ounce of meth down the toilet.
Wow. That was your last statement.
And my prayer was answered. And then I panicked, and then I realized, like, just how much I needed to feel. Like you said, it wasn't just I needed to get sober. I needed to change everything about me.
Wow.
Everything. And I have worked diligently since that time to do just that.
Tell me some of the things. We've talked on the phone a little bit, but tell the audience some of the things you do on a regular basis, maybe as a progression. What are some of the things that you do to make sure that you stay, I'm going to use the word healthy, not just physically, mentally, anywhere you want to go with that?
Okay, I think, though, to start, I knew I needed to, like, I'll start from the beginning. I knew I needed to address the trauma, right? I knew, like, okay, you started using drugs and alcohol before you turned 13. Why did you do that? Like,
Right.
why?
Wow.
And I never felt peer pressured. I went and sought it out. Like, I stole my stepdad's pot. I stole his booze. Like, I sought it out. Like, I was never like, oh, and because I suffered from severe anger problems as a kid. And then at 12 years old, I smoked pot and I got drunk and I'm like, holy smokes, this is everything. Why didn't someone give me this a long time ago?
This fixes everything.
Exactly. Until it doesn't. And, then it's, I know that there are some people who use, and then it's a quick spiral down. Like, I don't want to sit here and say like from 12 to 40, it was what it was at the beginning. It was a progression of 25 years that took me to utter bankruptcy in all facets of my life, marriage, financially, my relationship with my kids. It didn't happen overnight. So I knew I needed to address the trauma. And it was really hard because it was COVID. And so trying to find a therapist was difficult. So it was all online. It was in Zoom. It felt very unpersonable and unrelatable. But they put me on some antidepressants, and that started to help balance me out because my chemicals in my head were way off from a half, 5 to 6 years of heavy meth use. So it wasn't just like, it was every day. Right. And it was probably sleeping every fourth day.
Wow. And at this point, you got a job, you're functioning, or how does that?
No. I hadn't worked in a long time. I knew I needed to lose weight. And so we got evicted from our home. And my son and I went and lived at the beach. And so at this point I had been sober for probably 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
And I had been walking. That's how I started to lose weight. I just started to walk. And so I had finally bought a pair of pants and was able to wear triple extra large shirts. And I bought a pair of pants and I was in a size 44. And I decided to step on a scale. And I knew I had lost some weight because, I was able to put a triple extra large on. And, I tried to put it on not long before that and I couldn't. So I knew I had lost some weight. And so I stepped on a scale 4th of July week of 21. And I was 323 pounds.
Wow.
And so I had probably lost 20 to 30 pounds at this point. And I'm like, okay, I really need, this is way more serious than I thought. And so I just walked every day because I was trying to figure out how I was going to get my wife back, get my home back, get a car, find a place for my kids and I to live. And I had all these things I needed to do, and the insanity that I was going through, literally putting myself through, was creating a sense of depression and anxiety every bit as worse as the drugs were doing to me. So I was like, well, if you're going to do this and you can't find a way to do it, walk.
Right.
Walk. Do something good for your body besides create stress and anxiety. And so I walked. And I walked, and I walked, and I walked. And I started to lose a substantial amount of weight. Then I changed my diet a little bit by just controlling what I ate, portion control. And then once I started shedding a lot of weight doing that, I adjusted my diet more.
Okay.
And then at this point, I was only consuming 1,500 to 1,800 calories a day for probably 9 months. And I was losing 30 pounds a month. And
Wow.
So I got down to 280, 290. And I went to work as a janitor at a high school, or at the high school in the town I lived in at the time. And then it was weird. It was like working in a high school. And
Sure.
There was an opportunity to go be the nighttime janitor at a grade school, and I couldn't have asked for a better job.
Wow.
Because I in the mix of my addiction, I felt like I was pure evil. Everywhere I went, I suffered a lot of death and loss at that time, and there was just a lot of ugliness that follows the kind of addiction that I had. And I felt like I just spread the plague everywhere I went. And so there was a point in time I didn't leave my house for 8 months.
Wow.
I didn't leave my 4 walls of my house for 8 months. I didn't go outside. We lived in a town of Lafayette. And then the nearest real town is probably 5 miles away. I didn't go there for 5 years. People thought I moved out of
the area.
Yeah, we didn't know you were still around because I just didn't go anywhere. Because then it wasn't just the shame of my addiction; it was a shame of my obesity and the way how I looked and who I had become, because it wasn't me. And so, yeah.
At that point, I hate to cut you off. At that point, that idea of identity crisis. We talk a lot about how I look, who I am, who I've become, and we were just sharing, like, you're alive, but you're not living.
Right, and I wasn't. I wasn't living. I was alive, but I wasn't living. And so, the job as a janitor at the grade school, it was meager means but it was. It was like God put me in the job that I needed at that moment in time. We were still doing COVID stuff, but I worked alone, and I love to work. I'm a worker. And so, I had no boss. There's like, here, this is what you need to do. Here's a list of the things you need to do every day. Do them. And so I did them, and they loved it. Sure. And I was able to work alone, but it was a very active job, and I didn't have a car, so I'd walk. So there was a point in time for like 9 months that I was walking probably roughly 27 to 33,000 steps a day.
Wow.
Because I had to get to work.
Sure.
And I wasn't I'm too prideful to ask for rides.
Wow.
And it was inconvenient for people to give me a ride. Like, I worked from 3 to 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
3 in the afternoon to 11 at night. So it's inconvenient to ask for people. And I'm not going to, I don't know. I was already couch surfing, and I was.
Right, you're already that guy.
Yeah, I was already that guy. I'm 41 years old, and I'm that guy.
Oh, right.
So.
You hit on something that's kind of key, not just in your physical fitness, and we'll get into that part of it. Like, obviously, that's pretty key for your journey and your recovery. But you're talking about taking one small step, whether that's the job you do. So many people get sober. They want everything in their life to be fixed. You want your family fixed. You want your finances fixed. But in reality, you're talking about taking a fairly entry-level position, entry-level job. You're talking about, just losing a couple pounds and just putting one foot in front of the other, taking small steps so that you can make big changes. Talk to me a little bit about that idea of just moving somewhere, just making one adjustment, just changing one little thing.
Something I talked to for lack of a better term, a client about recently was, you have a big picture, and you take that picture and you break it up into puzzle pieces. And your goal is not to complete the puzzle, but is to take that one piece of the puzzle and make it fit. And sometimes you grab the wrong piece, and you don't want to force it, but you keep working until you find that piece that works for you, and then you plug it in, and you just keep taking that piece out and putting it in, and taking that piece out and putting it in until you don't remember ever missing that piece of the puzzle. And then you go to your next piece and build it. And so that's just kind of what I did. I knew, obviously and I work with quite a few addicts or who are in recovery, sure. And everybody wants everything all at once, because you're like, look at me, I'm doing everything good for the first time of however long it's been.
Throw me a parade.
Yeah, throw me a parade. And that's just, life doesn't care. Right, sure. Right? Like, I mean, I'm proud of you for making changes. Don't get me wrong, but life as a whole, the universe, God cares. I don't want to say that. God definitely cares. But, like, nothing happens instantly. Like, you didn't go from a healthy, even if you didn't go from a happy person to an addict overnight, sure. Right? Like, there was a point in time where it was fun until your addiction becomes a job.
Sure. And that's not necessarily a quick progression. You talk about it, but everybody wants it to be fixed.
Right, instantly.
Now.
I heard somebody say something like along the lines of, if it took you 12 years to destroy everything, it's going to take you 24 to double the time to bring it back.
Wow.
To put it back. And I don't know if that's accurate, but it feels
you're pacing that, right?
Yeah, right. And I don't expect it's going to take me 50 years to fix my life that was 25 years in addiction. But it can be done. And you got to learn to be okay with it taking time. Like something I always say, it's process over outcome. Learn to enjoy the process.
Yeah, there's some beauty in that. And what you're doing today, I know that you're working, we call you a life coach. You're working in a nonprofit in Oregon, and certainly are pouring into guys' lives. And this is part of the reward of getting clean.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, 100%. Like the chance that I'm even doing this job is because it's the same reason why I am sitting here with you today, is that I learned that sometimes it's not about goal setting. It's about finding your purpose and then being intentional with moments.
Wow.
Because for me, I don't want to say that I'm not driven by a greater goals in life, but I early on it became about like, oh, I'm not doing this, and then I would tear myself down and I'd beat myself up, and it became almost an unhealthy addiction trying to achieve goals. And then if I wouldn't,
you missed the mark.
I missed the mark, and then I would end up being so focused on where I missed the mark that I wasn't allowing myself grace for the wins that I was having.
Right.
And so learning to be intentional with what I believe God has called me to as far as my purpose, then when opportunities present themselves, is how I'm in this job now.
Sure.
The opportunity present itself, and I'm not scared.
Right.
Like, I'm not afraid to be like, step out and like, you could have easily said, no, James, I don't want you to sit here and tell your story to me. Like,
sure.
It's not interesting.
Right.
But that'd have been okay. Right. But because, the reason I'm here is to go, be here to support Brock in the Night to Prevail. And the reason, that happened is because we have a mutual friend who we have on Instagram, and he was on a live with him and made a comment, and I just bugged him.
Yeah.
That's so
cool.
So that's just, I think that's it. It's like learning what your purpose is, and everyone's purpose is different, but learning that purpose and learning to be intentional with your moments. And how I find that you do that is like first you learn to practice gratitude, because when you can have gratitude, you can be grounded in the moment.
Right. Yeah. If you stay right here, right now, and just to give your best effort today, or not even today. And I know a lot of guys are trying to break it down, maybe even by the morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, can I do something this morning? Yeah.
Yeah. Or the minute. Yeah. And that's literally how I lived for the first 2 years of my recovery, probably, was like, I'm just going to live in this moment, because I don't, it may not be over, but I can't look at the big picture. I can't look at everything I had and everything I lost, because I'll drive myself crazy. But I can look at like what I'm doing today. I don't want to go back to who I was.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I don't want to build it back to what it was, because what it wasn't healthy. But I can build it. I can create a new, better.
When you're doing today, when you say, let's go back to a little bit to your fitness, you're going into the gym, or what does your routine look like today?
Dude, I am driven by routine and schedule.
Okay.
Oh man, that's a big question. I am up early.
Okay.
I start my day usually between 4:30 and 5 in the morning.
Okay.
I pray.
Okay.
I read scripture.
Okay.
I make breakfast. I have coffee. I meditate after that, and then I journal. And some days I work early because I open my local gym Monday and Tuesday morning, but I take that 5-minute drive into town. I listen to the audio Bible, and I pray.
Wow.
And then that starts every day. Every day. I don't ever sleep in. If I do, it's usually Sunday, but sleeping into me is 6 o'clock in the morning.
Sure.
And so, but I do that every day. I go to bed at the same time. Like, I created routine because the one thing you can control in this world is your attitude and your effort. Mm-hmm. And part of your attitude and your effort are very, very dependent on the variable of how much sleep that you have.
Sure.
At least for me,
Sure.
Lack of sleep is my kryptonite. If I'm tired, then I'm
irritable.
I'm irritable, and I'm like, the thought of giving, like, oh, I don't need to go to the gym today, or I don't need to do this today, or I just want to quit, or I don't want to, like it, it creates a problem for me. So I really focus on making sure I eat really healthy and making sure I sleep 7 hours a day.
Okay. So that's a great rule of practice, but putting things into practice today and give you results tomorrow. We talked a little bit about that.
Absolutely. That's just it. It's like, I can't look in the rearview mirror for too long, but it's important to take glances. It's important to like look back and go, wow, look at where you were a 350-pound meth addict 3.5 years ago.
Right.
And, I'd be able to look at that progression of going, and like, I have a few collages of, I didn't take a lot of photos back then because of the amount of shame I was living with. But I have a few, and I put them in a collage, and I will look at it and I'll go, holy cow, even from what I looked like 2 years ago, and I'm clean and sober, and I had lost like 70 pounds, and you're thinking, wow, 70 pounds, that's a lot of weight. But then I lost another 7, like, I think I got down from 350 to 194 pounds.
Wow.
So I lost like
a human being,
more than a human being. Like, I lost a human being,
an adult.
A full grown adult. So, I think that's just it, is that like, what you said about that process is that I learned that if I can put this process to work to change myself physically, I can apply those same principles to anything and I can find success. Will it be as elaborate as my dreams are? Maybe not. But if you shoot for the sun, you're going to land on the moon. And that's still a lot better than
where you came from.
Where I came from. Exactly.
You know, we obviously cut from the same cloth, drive, energy, recognition of patterns in our lives, the things we do. How is that affecting your relationship with your family today? So some of the things you do today obviously are about your family and the idea that we get the chance to be with our kids today and have that opportunity to play a role in their life. Tell me about that.
I hate using the word regret because everything that I've experienced in life from infancy to sobriety has shaped me into the person I am today. And for the first time in 43 years, I can truly say I love the human being that I am today. But the one thing I will say that I probably regret is I didn't take the responsibility serious of being a parent. You know, it seems cliche because we all have parents. And at some point, our parents did a bad job because they're human. But I don't think the gravity of the situation really set in until I became sober, of that the job as a parent is literally shaping someone's life. And not only reshaping that person's life, but who our kids become go on to affect countless thousands of people that they interact with. And so there's no job I love more than being dad. I love being dad. And I hope, no matter what, even if I don't achieve my lofty goals and aspirations, if I can end the generational curse, if it ends with me and I can propel my children onto being somewhere else because I've shown them what it's like to scrape yourself up from it doesn't get much more bottom than where I came from. If I can show them that you can do that, and I can show them that you can lead a life of faith over fear, and that there is no such thing as dreaming too big, and you can put in effort, and there's no guarantee, but you can put in the effort and you can keep trying. If I can teach them that, then I will be, when my last breath happens and I'm laid to rest, I'll be at peace.
Wow, that's powerful, man. Thanks for sharing that. I think you've talked to every dad out there. You certainly talked to me, just from the aspect of like, we have a greater purpose. Like, there's several things. You got healthy, right? You got a little bit healthy. Yep. You got sober, yep. Right? So that fixes some things for you. You start looking at yourself in the mirror, proud of who you are. Now you fix your family. I want to jump into the stuff you're doing up in Oregon, the people that you're working with, and just the reward you get for kind of, I want to say, going to work every day. You've talked about it being a joyful thing. Talk to me a little bit about the work and effort that you guys are putting in up there and what you're doing to help that community.
I work for a nonprofit called Lutheran Community Services, and they have offices from Seattle, Boise, Portland, and then all the way down to Klamath Falls. I live in a little city of McMinnville. I live outside of there. And Lutheran does a little bit of everything for the community. I work in a child welfare team in Safe Families. I help people navigate parenthood who are DHS involved.
Okay.
Or people who are in recovery communities, and I sort of peer manage, but my main goal is to teach parenting skills.
Okay.
And something I always open with as I sit here with clients is I say, I'm here to teach you how to parent yourself so you can become a better parent.
Wow.
And because I don't truly believe there are bad people. We just get shaped by experience, and most people that I work with have had a lot of bad experience from their own upbringing. And so, some of it's just teaching people how to bond with their kid. Some people don't know, mothers with young children don't know that, take that time to hold them. And just when you first get home, take that time to hold them, build that bond, let them know that they're safe and they're loved, and be consistent. That's every client I have. The one thing I always work on is routine and consistency. Because most people that I work with either come from an area of, abuse from their own childhood, or they're addicts. They're some people are still in active addiction. And so, most addicts don't live a routine life.
Bouncing around from this thing to that thing.
Right.
Yeah, quick.
And
go
everything
now.
else in between. And so learning that, like, like one thing, part of the reason I get up so early is I needed to change my relationship with the sunrise. And that was probably like the first really big healthy thing I did for myself, is because when I had seen the sunrise, I hadn't gone to bed. And there were times that I don't even know how many I had seen in a row without sleeping, but I knew it wasn't healthy. So I changed my relationship with the sunrise. And then I realized that, like, okay, if I get up 2 hours before my kids have to be up, so if I get up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and I have 2 hours to do the things that I need to do to be healthy before I have to be dad. And so that's probably with every client is the one thing I like. That's my goal, because I write out goals. Sometimes they're DHS mandated, sometimes they're stuff I work out with them, but most everybody I work with is like, I need to get more scheduled and routine. And so I'm like, do this. And like, and you don't have to do all the things that I do, because it doesn't necessarily work the same for you. But like getting up an hour and a half before your kids do, that allows you to shower, that allows you to have your cup of coffee. If you pray, you can do self-care.
Right.
And I'm huge on self-care, and especially with like some of my younger clients, they think that sitting in front of the TV and playing video games is self-care. And I'm like, that's downtime.
Right.
Yeah, that's not self-care. Self-care is it proving you mentally? Is it proving you physically? And is it proving you spiritually? And if it's not, then that's not self-care. Wow. And sometimes like the mental thing is going and getting a pedicure. That's something my daughter and I will go. I try to go do once a month, is go get pedicures with my daughter, because it makes you feel good. It's like getting a haircut. Like that's part of improving yourself physically, or and like that kind of double back onto that whole. I wouldn't be who I am mentally today if it wasn't changing myself physically. And that, like, learning self-love came from taking care of myself and like improving myself physically to where I started to like the way I physically looked again, changed everything for me mentally.
Yeah, let's talk about those three again: physical, mental, and spiritual. So here's what happens in my mind, and you jump in anywhere you want, but the order of them is unimportant. I have a ton of people that come in and they can get spiritually fit pretty good. And spiritually is how I feel about myself on the inside.
Yes.
A lot of people think that's an external, a God, and you call it God, I call it God. That's fine. A greater power, higher power. So they have a good connection with that. And that's awesome. If you found that first and you start feeling good about yourself first, that's great. But you've got this physical and mental thing. And if you don't fix all three of those, you're definitely going to find yourself at some point relying too heavily
on the other.
Right.
You're right. It is all, it's so cliche. And the reason it's cliche, it is about balance. You can't be, for a while, I will be honest, I probably started leaning on the physical transformation as an addiction. I hadn't healed from my divorce. I hadn't reconciled with my children all the way yet. And the biggest thing is I hadn't reconciled or forgiven myself for my past. And so I started running. And I even told somebody one time, I think I'm running so much, because I would run like I was in horrible shape still. Right. And I would run like 15 miles a day. I'd break it up into 3 5-mile sets, not one continuous time. Okay. But I would
still pretty impressive.
Right. So I probably run, but and my friend was like, why are you running so much? I'm like, I'm running to break the chains of my past. And part of it was freeing, because when you sit there tweaked out and you get up to 350 pounds, that's a lot of sitting. That's a lot of sitting.
A lot of downtime.
A lot of downtime. A lot of really busy downtime. Not a lot being accomplished, but a lot of short movements. So part of it was freeing. Like I'll remember the first time I went out to this place. It's a great little 4-mile hike out in the woods called Miller Woods where we live, and I ran. And I remember running past people, and I was just, woo! And people are looking at me like you're crazy, and I probably was, and I probably am. But I was so freeing. It was liberating. I felt like a little boy running downhill again, because I hadn't done that in, a decade, sure, at least, and so it was liberating. But then I realized, no, you're running from your past because you don't know how to forgive yourself. Yeah. Because I love my kids so much, and the fact that like the selfishness of my addiction, I hurt them, was a lot to learn to forgive myself. And I think the one way that has really helped with that is just showing up every day, learning to be consistent and routine and supportive, and showing them that I've changed. But to your point is that, yes, if you rely too heavily on one, it can become an unhealthy addiction. I mean, I know professionals who make lots of money and they're horrible dads,
right?
Because they're
still not fulfilled.
They're not fulfilled, right? Because it's not enough. It's not enough. Or that they have focused on buying the bigger house, buying the bigger car, and working 12 to 16-hour days, but their kids are just wondering when dad's going to come home. Wow. So it's about balance. It's like, yeah, I know that work and creating stability is very important to the home. And that took me a long time to get to where I am, to like be able to be on a vacation and have a home and stability in a car again. It took 3.5 years.
Wow. There's definitely some stuff about time in there, but also I want to go back to something that you talked about that's hugely important to my listening, audience, and that is the healing. Like we can run if we want. You can run,
right?
But eventually, your trauma and your garbage from your past, it's going to catch up to you, and it's going to probably be heavier if you've let it gather almost some steam.
Yeah, agreed. And it's I something I share often is that like you can. Like every cartoon ever, when the little boy or girl is supposed to go clean their room and they just shove everything in the closet, and then eventually someone opens it and it all comes spilling out. That's exactly what happens with trauma. And I feel like in my own life, 0 to 3, I don't remember a lot of it, but it was very unhealthy and scary, and we'll leave it at that. But that created a series of events that never healed until I found drugs and alcohol. And then for the next 24 or 5 years of addiction, I kept shoving everything in that proverbial closet until it all spewed out. And then I didn't know how to heal it. But I was sober. I found a therapist who I still see once a month, and I do EMDR therapy.
Okay.
And that has been a huge game changer as far as healing those traumas. And there's still a few more I need to work on, because like you said, they resurface, and they don't resurface in horribly unhealthy ways.
You probably recognize them better.
Not only do I recognize them better, but if they get pointed out by a loved one or a trusted confidant, I'm not defensive,
right?
Or as defensive, I should say, as I probably would have been, and then I'm like, okay, a couple of people are saying this, so there's probably something I really need to look at and I need to bring into my next session. That's huge. My relationship with God is huge. It's a huge part of my recovery.
Tell me what that looks like. I guarantee somebody that's sitting on their couch right now, rolling their eyes, they're sitting in their office or their headphones in the gym, and they're going, I don't get what you're talking about, because the God that I serve and or believe in today is not the God that my mommy introduced me to when I was 7 years old. Right. So talk to me about that God and what necessarily looks like, but what is it in your life when you say you're relying on or leaning on that God? What does that look like?
I think in my own life, and this is only speaking from my perspective, is that I always thought God was going to be this God that moved physical mountains, and that like the miracles were going to be the miracles of Jesus feeding 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 5 fish. But what I've come to find out is that God whispers. And he's soft and he's subtle. And the miracles that we see are the reason I'm sitting here today talking to you. Right? God has put people in my life and situations in my life. And I'm not saying I didn't do the work or the legwork to make them happen, but because of those miracles, I have a support system of people who I can call if I feel like I'm down. And my addiction, like, hey, Brock, I'm struggling here. I'm kind of feeling like I might be using. Or, hey, Marcus, I'm struggling with my spirituality. You have advice for me? Or, hey, for whatever's going on. Or, hey, man, I need somebody to come lift weights with me today because I need to be challenged or pushed. That's what God looks like to me. And I went into a really scary church when I was a boy. That was very hellfire and brimstone.
Sure.
And I had already been labeled as a bad kid. And by this time, when I'm really having to go to church, I'm like 12 or 13 years old. I'm not, and like I'm already feeling like a bad kid, and you're just gonna tell me I'm condemned to hell. I'm like, well, what the heck is the point? Even part of me being there, you know, I think one of the truest things in the Bible is that God is love, and learning that, and then learning that I've been forgiven, and I see that forgiveness. And someone had told me, my friend Rob had told me once, is like, James, because I was struggling with that forgiveness thing, and he was like, James, and he has a real thick Southern accent, but I won't try to do that. And he's like, James, someone told me one time about forgiveness. He's like, they said to me, Rob, do you believe that God has forgiven you of all your sins? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And he's like, then what makes you better than God? So what do you mean? So, well, what makes you better than God? Why can't you forgive yourself? And so that's like a really profound thought. Like, so if this is my faith, and I believe this to be true, that God has forgiven me, then I should be able to forgive myself, because I am not greater than God.
Right, and there's no ego in that. Like, a lot of people think, and I know that there's audience that their family looks at us and says, you're crazy, like, you guys, oh, you want everybody to forgive you, and I'm not expecting that, and there's no, like, I'm better than because I got sober, I'm fixed. It's more about the fact that because you know I show up, because you know I'm trying to be a better person, you don't have to forgive me, you'll want to, right? Because I'll have proven to you in some fashion that I'm not the person I was 10 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever it was.
Exactly. I think that's just it. Is it like, I don't want, one of the rudest things anybody's ever said to me was, of course you're Christian, because of where you come from. And I'm like, I had 100,000 different options or choices, and how I came to God is deeply personal, and I won't touch on that right now, but how I came to God was profound. A big part of it was my friend Marcus, and the other part of it was my son Cash, who's like, he's like, I'd like to read the Bible. I'm like, okay, that's a great idea. There's great lessons in there. And this is before I had gone back to church and got rebaptized. And I'm like, there's great lessons in there. And so he starts reading it, and like 2 weeks later, he's like, I think I want to go to church. And I never pushed religion on my kids, because I figured, like, I feel like it's a deeply personal thing. If that's something you want to be invested in, then I'll obviously support that. And so we started going to church, and we never quit going. And so that's sort of how I found God again.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think the fact that you found God, when you say I found God, or again, found this higher power, it motivates you to just keep on finding and discovering.
And discovering and learning what that relationship really looks like. And knowing that that God saw me through, man, to experience what I've experienced in life and to be where I'm at today, I feel would be very arrogant and shameful of me to say that there wasn't something greater than me that led me to where I am today, because I know where I go when I lean on myself. And what started this spiral was, I'd gone back to school. I was in shape to buy a home. I was buying cars. I was making good money. I had this pretty wife. I had this really pretty home. Had everything that I ever thought I needed. And I started making horribly selfish I statements. I can look back on this and go, look at what I'm doing. Look at what I'm doing. Look at what I'm doing. And what I did was build something and then
tear it down.
I didn't just tear it down. I took a blowtorch and some napalm and a nuclear bomb, and I wiped it to oblivion. Because that's who I am, right? And that's what I mean. Like, I know where I get on my own, and it's not where I am today.
Wow,
and that's what really leads me to believing that God.
Wow.
Or I'm a Christian, and so I believe in Jesus, and I'm not saying, like, as long as you're not believing in something that's causing harm to people, I'm not here to convert you or judge you, because that's not my job. I'm the last person on earth that wants to judge anybody, because I don't want to be judged.
Right. Yeah,
and I have plenty of skeletons in my closet to be judged for.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that. Where we drop that. I mean, I think I drop a lot more of that judgmentalness. Some of those key characteristics in recovery is not just fixing, I don't drink, I don't do drugs. It's fixing that I don't look at you in a certain way. I respect that you've come through some ugliness. You've healed from some trauma. You've been on a journey. So no matter how many tattoos you have, no matter how your hair looks, no matter how clean or how dirty you are, no matter any of that, I don't care if you are taking the steps of process to improve your life today.
That's right. And that there is nothing on this planet that excites me more than that. Like, I don't care if you're a multi-millionaire, but you always wanted to lose 100 pounds, or you're a desolate hobo who has nothing and you've been sober for 24 hours, or you're your special needs, or you're a power lifter, or but you're putting an effort to do something that somebody told you couldn't do, or more importantly, you told yourself you couldn't do, and you're doing it. And that feeling of reward, I know you felt it too. There's like better. I remember the first time I got a serotonin high.
Okay.
I remember this day. We live out in the hills of wine country in Oregon, and I ran up this hill, and from our house to the hill is 1.75 miles, all uphill.
Okay.
I mean, all uphill, and I ran it, and at not a horribly fast speed. I think I did it in like 11 or 12 minutes. So, but uphill.
Sure.
And I remember getting to the top of that, and I'm so winded, but I felt this run. I have done every drug under the sun, and I have never felt higher or better. Like, that hard work to earn a serotonin hit,
right,
is like, if somebody would have told me that at 12 years old, like, hey, dude, you can be by the way, if you're super disciplined and structured and consistent and you keep pushing yourself to new heights, like, you're going to experience a super great feeling. Like, if somebody would have explained to me like that discipline wasn't just going to a job you hated every day and doing it, like, because nobody wants to go to a job they hate every day, like, or just be seen as a provider and not a comfort, or a nurturer, right? Like, I feel kind of off topic, but that's where in fatherhood in America has really suffered, is that like dads have just become the money, right? And so many fathers from generations that's just been the job, and so there's been this key nurturing aspect of fatherhood and manhood that has been lost in the last 100 years. But yeah, and somebody told me, like, dude, you can get high off of serotonin, like the serotonin hit, like, that was, I mean, I will never forget that day. And I feel like that's kind of what happens when you level up, and it doesn't happen as often as it did, because, well, my levels are the peak is getting higher, and so it takes a lot more effort to get to where I want to go.
But I think you're pursuing it, right? I think if we were going to say anything in closing, that we are working towards that version of ourselves. But the best part is we don't arrive tomorrow.
No.
Right? You keep on working. Like, if you run a half marathon, then the next thing you're going to do, run a marathon.
Right.
Right? And keep on going, keep on trudging, keep on pushing yourself to be better and better.
In all aspects, that's exactly it. It's never about the destination. It's all about the journey, man. I love the journey. Like, and it's funny too, because it's like, oh, you set goals, and then those goals change and they evolve. And I think that's why I try to be more intentional than goal driven, because like the intentionality is like, okay, you're going to continually change yourself physically, and you're going to continually change yourself mentally. And like, how does that evolve? Because what worked for me a year ago isn't what I'm doing today.
It better not. The best news is it better not.
Yeah, because if because then you're not growing. You're just stagnant.
Right.
You're
going through the motions.
You're going through the motions. Yeah. Exactly.
And I think you hit on that with fathers is that the reward we get of fatherhood, and in anything in our life, in relationships, I'll just say relationships, the rewards we get from that are not just necessarily what somebody put in some book somewhere or something you read.
Right.
You're going to know when you're being a dad. You're going to know what some of that stuff feels like. You've told me a little bit about some of the experiences you get to have with your kids today that you never had when you were high. You missed out on, and they're not necessarily massive, I'm going to say, Six Flags events.
No.
They're these quiet moments, sitting down and having dinner with your daughter.
Yeah, or having, my
sister.
Yeah, yeah, like, dude. One of the greatest rewards is that I have this relationship with my two beautiful little sisters, and we're and part of that is we're very different people. I'm quite a bit older than both of them, and the lifestyle I lived for a long time was very opposite. But because of my relationship with God, man, we text every morning. They tell me they love me. I tell them that I love them. We support each other. Last weekend was my baby sister's. It was a day before her. Sorry, I got to do the math, Jace. She turned 31. It's her 31st birthday. So we all went out to breakfast together. Her husband, and my other sister, Jillian. Jillian's 2 daughters, my mom, my girlfriend, and both my kids. So we're all out to breakfast together. And then we all went and... Sorry, I'm about to cry. We all went out and watched my niece play basketball. And that seems silly. But it's huge, because at the end of the day, all you really have is family. And the fact that we were able to show that much support and that much love for one another, and just that one. And then we all went to church together the next day. It's like those were things that didn't happen. Those were the little things that didn't happen. My son coming up and telling me that he loves me. That his football team went pretty far in the state playoffs this year, and there was a lot of time that I didn't go to football games, and they lost in the semifinals. And just to be there, and I didn't say anything, I just put my hand on his head and I gave him a hug, and things like that are there that weren't there.
Right.
Like this shit that I took for granted because it just seemed like it was going to be forever. And as your kids age, it doesn't take very long for you to realize it isn't going to be forever. Right. And then as you age and your parents die and your friends die and the people around you die, you realize that, man, this thing is really precious. Right. And it can come and go really quick. And so you better capitalize on each moment. And most of the time we spend chasing stuff that's going to not be here in 100 years. Your home is going to be somebody else's home. The car you're paying for is going to end up in a dump. The TV you bought's going to be scrapped and in the dump. All that's going to last is the memories that you create and the love that you share.
That's powerful.
And that's what life boils down to. My legacy may not be millions of dollars, but my legacy will be how I'm remembered by the people I interact with and my family. And so that's what I focus on.
That's powerful stuff, and that's a great place to put your focus. I just wanted to finish by saying, one, thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making the flight down, man. It's super honored to have you here.
I'm so proud to be here. I'm honored.
I'm proud of you, but I'm also proud of you, the listener who's tuned in and says, man, I don't know how to do this. I'm here to tell you, if guys like me and James can take this journey and leave a legacy of hope and love and joy and happiness, and if nothing else, you show up tomorrow, I'm proud of you. Thanks for being with us. I hope you heard something today that gets you to take one small step into the version of the person that you want to be. For more content like this, subscribe to our channel below, or you can go on letsgorecovery.org. Until next time,